Hey everybody, Jessica Henry Gray here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I am at Cape Meares, Oregon, and I'm gonna paint this gorgeous water and some cliffs, maybe a lighthouse, I don't know. I'm just gonna see what there is here and have some fun. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you like and subscribe if you enjoy this video. All right, so let's jump in and do some plein air. Welcome back everybody to my YouTube channel. I am happy to have you with me today. I am here in Oregon and I'm painting this beautiful Cape Meares scene before me. I went ahead and explored the area, and this is the lighthouse. It just really wasn't a great place to stand back and paint it, but look at this beautiful shoreline. And anyway, so I chose on this cliff to paint the scene, and I was working with the composition a little bit. I did a few thumbnail sketches just to try to get the placement of the cliff in relation to the rocks and the water exactly where I wanted them, knowing that the main thing that I wanted this painting to be about was that beautiful water down below. And I needed the cliffs and the rocks to help support my story, and so I chose on my final sketch, and then I used that sketch onto my canvas because I worked so hard at trying to get it just so. So I did speed this up a little bit, but I will talk about it as I go along. So utilizing my thumbnail sketch and the placement of the cliffs, giving them some importance but not primary importance, and they needed to be in there, of course, to frame in the water as though it changed color down where the water met the sand under the beach, so it was important to have them there. So I'm just sort of loosely sketching them in and using a little bit of thinner on my brush. I did tone the canvas ahead of time. Just a little bit of burnt sienna and ultramarine blue, thinned it down, wiped it down, and then with that inky mixture I just drew in. You can see it's not rocket science. I just loosely sketch because I want to be adaptable as I go about, and it's one of the reasons I do not draw with a pencil on my canvas, because painting has more to do with sculpture than drawing, and when you start out with the pencil drawn image, it can tend to look flat, like you're filling in the lines. So I like to be adaptable and work through the sculpture. I was also struggling with the wind in this. I edited out, but there were times I'm chasing down my hat, my easel almost fell, my camera almost fell. So it was a bit of a challenge for this plein air, but that is what plein air is all about. So I started at the sky with that ultramarine blue and white up above, and then there was sort of a gray patch in the middle of clouds cover. And under there, that cloud created almost a violet shadow, which is alizarin crimson, a little bit of ultramarine blue, a little bit of sienna and white to kind of gray it down a little. And then below that was a little darker, and then far away, it kind of got grayer. And so just as you're looking at the passage of a sky, you want to squint down at it and really just boil down the essence of what it is you're seeing. I took a clean, dry brush and periodically would wipe it off and soften the edges because I really didn't want some strong brushwork up in the sky. Just a gentle feeling of the passage of that cloud front, the front that was coming in. All right, so beginning on the water, a little bit of ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. I established my horizon line first, and I keep it pretty light and just keep it straight. But then I come back through. I do not want a stark horizon line. So with a clean, dry brush, I just drag it gently over the top of that. And that does a nice, has a nice effect in softening that horizon line. And then just fanning it out, and then I will bring the ocean up to that horizon line so I can use a little bit thicker paint and just play with the colors a little bit more since I have my horizon done. I don't have to keep fighting with it. So a little bit of white into that yellow ochre ultramarine blue, a little more blue than yellow, and it will give me a nice rich sapphire color for the water. Ultramarine blue I found to be the most versatile blue for plein air painting, any kind of painting. It's pretty much what I use. I have all kinds of other blues, but I always come back to this one. It's just the staple of my plein air kit. A little bit of white. I wanted that passage there where it goes off the canvas to have a lighter effect because the eye is always drawn to the area of the greatest contrast. And so if it was a sharp contrast leaving the canvas, our eye would have been drawn directly there. So I also like the effect of it being sort of more sunlit, like the sun is over there and it's casting a greater shine on the surface of the water. It just had a nice effect. A little bit of the more yellow ochre as it comes closer to us. Yellow ochre is, on our vision, just one of those elements of color that is closer to us. So as things go away from our vision, we have less, first we have less red, then we have less yellow ochre, and then blue is the last to leave our spectrum. So up here up front, where the water's closer, of course, this is what my painting is all about, the water. So I spend most of my time on this. And I lay down the foundation first. I'm not quite as worried about the waves and the splashes, but I'm trying to get the effect of it looking like a tabletop surface. And I'm using horizontal brush strokes. And when I squint down at the water, I'm looking for the darkest passages first, and then where I have lighter areas in and around those dark passages. So that will just subtly and gently create the effects of waves, and you can see that as I develop it here a little bit further. And that was just a clean, dry brush that I gently moved over the surface because at this point now I'm going to start layering in my darker waves just where I see them. And I'm paying very close attention to the angle that those waves are on the surface of the water. And you can sort of see off to the left there I have some waves coming in, and they really just represented as a darker value. So I'm looking at where they connect with the side of the cliff. All right, now these rocks in the water, just a little bit of yellow ochre, ultramarine blue, there was some white, and just laid down. They're not finished. I'm just wanting them to have a sense of place while I begin to work on the water around them. So a little bit of that phthalo green and the yellow ochre and some of the blue gives you the starting of this color for the water as it comes closer. What you can't really see from this video clip here that I have on sort of on repeat is the color of the water. When you're standing above it, it just has it's a little lighter, and you can see when you look down on it more of the yellow and phthalo green effects. So I pulled out that a little bit more intensely on my painting, and then right below that large rock I could see more of the phthalo green and yellow ochre under the sort of picking up in the reflection. So as the water came closer to me, I lightened it with a little more yellow ochre, some white, some phthalo green, and I developed this passage that I was really excited about in doing this painting. Just laying down pieces of color, and I want them to maintain their sense of integrity in their space. So I think one of the problems that a lot of people have is that they tend to get muddy, and they don't, they just use the same brush and work their way through the whole thing, and before they know it, all of their colors have blended and there's no sense of integrity for the sense of color spaces. So while I do use the same brush, what you don't really see in the camera very often is how much I'm wiping and cleaning it off. That is the secret to getting cleaner, brighter, crisp colors. Clean brush. And if you have to use more brushes, do it, but or just keep your brush clean. And then go back through, lay the paint down, don't mess with it. If you have to blend colors, get a clean dry brush and gently blend those just on the edge where the two colors touch. All right, so now I am laying in the lighter passages of the waves where I see the more of the light hitting the in between the waves. The trough is what it's called. And that is just that passage in there, and laying it down in smaller, thinner, closer horizon lines as the waves slip back into the ocean. All right, so the surface of the water is where I want it, and now I'm taking a little bit of white with some yellow ochre and a smaller brush, and I'm just coming back through now, and I'm isolating the lighter passages where I see most of the foam working its way around the rocks and objects in the water. So I'm just, first of all, laying that down, and I'm developing these rocks a little bit further because I'm going to be working around them now. They're going to get a little more attention, and I need to have them in place before I can start putting the rocks, the water splashing up on the rocks. If I don't have the rocks, they can't have anything to splash on. So a little bit of darker at the base where they're constantly getting wet from the water. And then I kind of work the sculpture of the rocks in and around with the water while I'm painting them. All right, now with the rocks, the large cliffs, it's the same idea as well with the water. I can't paint the splashes and foam around the base of them when I don't have them in place yet. So I'm working from general to specific with these rocks, and I'm just laying down the main color I see when I squint down at the rocks, and I'm blocking them in with just some really simplistic colors and values. I want to get the bulk there. And so I'm squinting and I see it's a yellow ochre, burnt sienna, a little bit of green in places, and then it's darker towards the bottom where it gets beat up and wet and by the waves. And the salt affects the condition of the rocks as well. There's a little bit of a grayer tint towards the bottom. So as I work up the side of the cliff, I'm just using short, choppy brush strokes. I, I wish I'd had more time to develop these cliffs further in this painting, but I mean, I was kind of at my wit's end by the time I did finish this, because I was chasing everything down and holding the easel down with one hand while I was painting. So I did not get to paint these cliffs to the finish that I would have liked, but such is life. Really, what I wanted to paint was the water anyway, and I needed the cliffs to support the water. So here we go with a little bit of greener and russet color towards the bottom of them. And you can see as I go along, as I'm painting, is how I do that. Now, in the process of painting the waves and the foam splashing up against the rocks, the first thing I do is paint a lighter haze over where those waves are going to be crashing, because when you squint down at the water, you see a softer white, and then over the top of that, I'll add a few crisp, actual white splashes. So that's my foundation, what I'm laying in here first, just these gentle passages of the whiteness, and then over the top of that I'll put the waves. In drawing, there's a technique called ribboning a line, where you press and you lift and you press and you lift so that the line itself has an effect as like a ribbon. And that was what I was working on with these waves as the foam kind of lays over the top of the surface of the water. I ribbon my line by pressing and lifting and pressing and lifting, just as I gently curve that curve of foam. And that's just, you can just play with that a little bit. I used a little bit of yellow ochre and white to sort of get that color that the foam, it's not pure white in places, because it churns up whatever's in the water, and it has sort of an ochre color. So that's what I was working on there. And then, of course, here I'm working on building up the texture of the water and the splashes around the rocks, and the further rocks as well. Now these rocks here that I work on in the foreground, they were actually there, but I considered leaving them out. Just wasn't really sure if I felt that they would help, or you always have to make those assessments when you're working from life or from a photo. Is this thing that I want to paint or that's in my image, is it going to help with the composition? In this case, I did feel that the rocks were helpful for the composition, and so I added them in the painting. And I like them too. I think that they sort of lead the eye in, and so I work on those for a while and get the splashes all around there to be the way I saw them down below. Just using the corner of my brush, I'm able to get some small little tiny details in and around these rocks that were way out there. And I like that too because I'm able to get up and show the water up in the cracks and crevices of the rocks. So you can turn your brush and use it in just subtle different ways. You don't have to have, a fistful of brushes while you're working. Just keep your brush clean, and it's amazing how versatile your brushes can be. All right, so the final touch to this painting was just to clean up all the splashes around the rocks and to have a sense of connection. So I finished up this pile of rocks here in the water, and I also wanted to get more splashes of rocks and water around these so that they felt more of a connection to the sea. And I want to thank everybody for joining me. I hope that you enjoyed this video and we'll find some useful tips in here. And remember, if you did enjoy it, to like and subscribe. And I really enjoy your comments. And I will see you next week. I am going to be doing a fun Halloween picture next week in the studio. All right, everybody, have a wonderful week, and I will see you then. All right, bye-bye.